And good morning again. We're here with Brooke, and my name's Don, talking about Dr. Mao's latest book, The Live Your Ultimate Life, and we've been doing this for several weeks, every Sunday about 11:30 Eastern Time. And last week we were talking a little bit about one of the sections in the book called Mind Health, and Dr. Mao points out that well, actually, not only Dr. Mao, most people of wisdom would, and of some knowledge of health, would point out, as he says, that mind health is cultivating your balance of your intellect, emotions, and intuition. So you have these 3 points. I'm kind of like heavy intellect bound for most of my life, and a little slow on the emotional part, and probably slow on the intuition, because I never quite understood the intuition. You think about, we always say women's intuition, so that's my excuse that I'm not a woman, so I don't have intuition. So, and then he goes on to point out that mind health is key to your body health, as it orchestrates all of your life. And your physical health, in turn, impacts your mind, your thoughts and emotions, and spiritual health is dependent on your mind health. So it's a very important portion. And then he points out, and I think we talked about a little bit last week about meditation. I try to meditate as much as I can. And you can call meditation anything you want, prayer, just mindfulness, many different descriptions. Basically, you're just trying to calm your mind, calm your emotions. Some techniques, you can concentrate on a certain word or a certain idea or a certain thought. This week, to a bunch of online courses on neuroplasticity or neuropsychology. The idea is that your mind will physically change your brain in the connections. And so and Dr. Mao is kind of hinting at the same thing, that through meditation, through improving your mind, your physical body, your intellectual body, your brain actually changes. So science is now finding that what we think is what we are, what we become.
Absolutely.
So so in my example, in my early working years, I was concentrating on making money. That's all I cared about. And so my mind was being wired to do that, which I would advocate no one doing, quite frankly. But so my mind was just trained my brain to think in certain ways and act in certain ways. I was way out of bounds on that aspect of my life. So some of these scientists are now saying you might want to think about, what is your core value, or if you were going to pick one thing that you would like your life to be, what would that be? And then once you figure that out, then you just let your mind think about that.
Well, and you can manifest it. I mean, my mom used to say that way back when I was a kid, and I thought she was crazy. Like, how do you manifest stuff out of thinking about it? And it is so true,
Yeah.
I also just read yesterday a scientific article about how, for so long we have, scientists have assumed that once you've learned to a certain point, like at old age, like you can't continuously change the brain. And just recently they have proof that is obviously, that's not true, and that we can constantly reshape and retrain our brains and learn more throughout our entire life.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm finding in the process of meditating to think about my core value. And you can think of it, literally. You can use a word, for example, or just think of that thought process or a generality or a picture. But the idea is, the more you think of that core value, the more your brain starts rewiring yourself to be that, in fact. So say your core value is to be a kind and loving parent. You meditate on kind, loving parent or pictures around that every time that you meditate, and your brain literally rewires and you become that kind, loving parent, for example.
Absolutely.
And then on the other hand, if we all know people, besides ourselves, they're a little off the wall, and you can in the 5 elements, you can pick out some of those personalities, the wood element, the metal element, so forth, about those different personalities. But you can see, or at least guess, that maybe these folks, like my core is the water element. So I'm like always studying and trying to teach and so forth. And so people around me certainly recognize that's my personality. But if I wanted to moderate that and get more balanced, I might start thinking more of the, what was I going to try to think? Like say the wood element, for example. So I could be thinking of, well, I need to be a little more assertive around people when I'm generally more shy.
Yep.
So I could just use that in my meditation, picture myself in that situation or picture a word, and then my brain would start rewiring so that I'm not so much of entirely a water element.
Yes, I would agree. I have found reading this book that I lack in my metal elements. I guess except when I'm angry. But I really want to start working on more of my metal element because I like some of the attributes in it. I don't want to be completely metal, but I find that I'd rather be balanced in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. On page 160, you want to read from there? And Dr. Mao's talking about developing your intuition and creativity. And
absolutely.
See what he has to say about that.
Intuition and creativity are your higher mind, which come from nurturing your subconscious and trusting its expressions. Intellectual learning helps you acquire knowledge, and yet a busy mind filled with excessive knowledge can inhibit the development of intuition and block your access to creativity. Incessant mental distractions, survival worries and ruminations, and negative emotions all act like a cloudy sky separating you from the North Star. It's easy to see why many people lose their way and never reach their potential. The most effective way to clear these patterns is to nurture self-awareness and the reflective mind. Use contemplation, invocation, and meditation to awaken the power inherent within you to help guide and manifest your life.
Yeah, that's well said, well read.
Yep, 100% true.
Yeah, and that's, as I was pointing out my earlier life, I was overloaded on the intellectual part of it, so I was kind of ignoring the intuition part, and of course I probably didn't understand it either, so that didn't help matters. So the meditation idea of just calming your mind and taking a break from your daily activities certainly helps. It's, in fact, some of the scientific studies, they're finding if you meditate or pray or whatever you want to use for that word, 20 minutes a day, which seems a lot, for a month, your brain actually starts rewiring all those neurons and synapses, and you actually will find a very significant change in your behavior, your physical and mental health. And I've done that over the years, and I think it is very true. I just never realized it until these scientists come out with all these studies.
No,
so
absolutely.
Yeah. So just a simple thing is meditate 20 minutes a day for a month, and see the changes that happen and how you feel better in all those ways, physically, mentally, and spiritually. And I think if people could try that, I think they would be amazed. But the trying is difficult.
The trying, yeah.
We're in such a habit. We've got our busy lives and things to do, and we've never done that. So changing our habit into doing something like that for a month is not easy. It's almost like, going on a healthier diet or something.
I was going to say. Well, and then you're talking about something that, as an intellectual-based society, a lot of people look at that and they're like, meditation. And I like what you said. You said earlier that meditation doesn't have to be just sitting there. One of the things I have found that is beyond helpful is working on a puzzle, drawing. I'm so focused on what I'm doing, I stop the brain chatter that's constantly going in my head. And working on a puzzle or drawing is very much a form of meditation.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that's absolutely true. When you put your mind to a single focus so that you're eliminating the distractions, or at least if you're distracted, you come back to your painting or whatever the activity is. That's a form of meditation.
Absolutely.
Just like the martial arts are a form of meditation, because you're focusing your mind on a certain physical motion. And even though your mind might be thinking about what am I having for dinner, it quickly goes back to that physical motion. So your mind is concentrating on a single thing, just like when you're praying or meditating.
Exactly.
So like you point out, for folks who have trouble saying, well, I'll just sit down for 20 minutes and close my eyes, they can say, well, let me paint for 20 minutes. Let me take a walk around the neighborhood for 20 minutes and try to calm your mind as you're walking.
Definitely.
It's a good point.
Yep.
And let's see here, looking further here into Dr. Mao's book. Next week, Brooke had pointed out something. Dr. Mao advocates, as do many other people, of course, how to eat healthy. And depending on which personality you primarily are, there are certain foods that you either would be benefit by taking, and foods that probably you wouldn't benefit by taking. So we're going to try to begin to take a look at that. And Brooke pointed out earlier that Dr. Mao has some sort of a little cookbook or healthy eating hints or something. I'm not quite sure. I haven't seen it, which apparently you can get when you order some of his products from out there in California. So anyway, we'll take a look at that next week on what kind of basic things our different personalities might by looking at. Let's see here. Take a look at page 183. This is a section on relationship health. If I got the right page.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
183, chapter 8.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so he gives a little quote here to begin with. Gibran, you want to read that, Brooke?
Sure. But let there be spaces in your togetherness, and let the winds of the heavens dance between you. Love one another, but make not a bond of love. Let it rather be a moving sea between the shores of your souls.
Yeah, of course, that's thousands of years old. I'm not too familiar with when he lived, but it's pretty old advice.
And very true.
Yeah. And so now Dr. Mao starts getting into the idea of the relationships. And on the next page, he talks about your relationships that are actually governed, he says, by your internal rules of conduct. And that kind of reminds me of what I was learning this week about how our mind thinks, that's how we are. So if my mind was always thinking about working, making money, how to go to the next level, then my relationships are going to be governed by that same thing in a sense, in which Absolutely. They turned out they were. And so my personal experience was, going to work, working hard, working a lot of hours, and everything revolved around that. But he says your morality is really about rediscovering your true nature. And that's a trick, because unless you're meditating or calming your mind, you're not going to discover that true nature too well. Because I figure, well, my true nature is to make money. Yeah, right.
And you want somebody around you that wants the same thing, if you think about that as well.
Yeah. Well, I remember in my early 20s, I had started investing in the stock market.
Yep.
And just by luck, I actually made money because the stock market at that time was going up. So I thought, well, I'm a wizard here. I'm a genius, you know. And so I thought, okay, for a relationship, I want to find somebody who's doing exactly the same thing as I am. So I was looking for somebody who was investing in the stock market, which was crazy thinking. So anyway, going on, Dr. Mao now talks about, and I think am I still here? Okay. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay. I think I bumped my headphone here. Here I get. Yeah, I bumped it. Okay, so now I'm back. Okay. He says the common good in all mankind is characterized by 5 basic virtues. And he says they are loving kindness, civility, appropriateness, faithfulness, and wisdom. Now, if you think about that, how true that is. If I was thinking about those core values. Mine kind of at this point is loving kindness. I try to think about that. So he's saying one of the 5 basic virtues is loving kindness. The second is civility, being civil to one another, politeness, appropriateness, in a sense, not going immoderate, or just being kind of in the middle, so you're appropriate in the different circumstance and to the different personalities. Faithfulness and wisdom, and probably wisdom is one of the hardest ones, because how can you define that? How can you get wisdom other than being old or something?
Oh, that's not true. My husband says that he'll always think that wisdom comes from age, and wisdom just comes from experience. And sometimes I'll find a younger person that I forget how old they are. They have such wisdom. We talk about having old souls in us. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, definitely is the experience. And okay, and then going on in that same paragraph, actually, this is a pretty full paragraph of important stuff. He says your behavior is often a reaction from your mental and emotional temperament. So once again, how you think is how you are.
Yep.
So, and then he says that which corresponds to your core elements. So let me just say that again. Your behavior is often a reaction from your mental and emotional temperament, which corresponds to your core element.
Yeah.
So if you're a fire element, which is very fiery, and emotions go up and down, and they're really wildly, and they're burning strongly, and all that. If somebody says something to a fire person, they're going to react fierily.
Yep.
Which may or may not be good. The circumstance might be suitable where you should react very quickly and very emotionally to something, but there might be a circumstance where you might want to tone down that fire. So that's where you got to balance your 5 virtues: the loving kindness, the civility, because a fiery person tends to be not so civil sometimes, and also my personality, the water personality, I tend to not be very civil sometimes. If I don't like something, I'll tell the person, well, I don't think that's right, or whatever. So you got to work on that. So anyway, so he's saying that when you work on restoring your balance, you recover this innate quality of being naturally virtuous, because the philosophy, I think, is that we all are naturally virtuous. Yes. But because of how we think, because of our environment, because of our hereditary, our ancestors, we sometimes aren't quite so virtuous anymore. And of course, from the distractions of daily life, that causes us to lose a bit of that natural virtuousness as we're making our livings and raising families and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So he says, once you integrate all this stuff, the result is a more satisfying and fulfilling relationship in your life. So that's the real trick, and it ain't so easy.
It sounds easy. I just started yesterday. My daughter and I sat down, and I've been really trying to help her. And of course, I had to figure out what element she was so that I knew how to reach her. And she is a fire element, and I'm water. So of course, we're polar opposites. But having this book and recognizing these things, I really feel like we will be able to connect very shortly, like how I can speak with her. That's all I can say. I'm just hoping that we can connect on a different level now.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Yeah. Oh, last week, that reminds me, last week we were talking about how do you apply these teachings and these philosophies to children. Did you have any thoughts on that anymore, Brooke? I
did actually, because of course I don't live at a Buddhist temple, that I started doing some research. I asked the kids if they'd be willing to do my Tai Chi with me just for 10 minutes. And I started pulling out certain motions that I thought would interest them. I showed my son, there's actually in Qigong, there's a pushing down the tiger, which he thought was super cool. And so we just kind of worked on that. And the same thing, like, even though he may not be doing it as calmly as he should, he was so focused on pushing down the tiger that I got a good 5 minutes of him focusing on that. And as my daughter is such a fire spirit, it's so hard to keep her mind settled. I did some research and I found these, I'm going to make her this jar. It's just jar of like sparkles. And you shake the jar and you're just supposed to watch the swirls move. And of course it's sparkly and cool that she likes, and her mermaid colors. And so, yeah, I'm really starting to try to think outside the box to help them. Just even for 5 minutes, a little bit of peace. We'll see how it goes.
Well, very good. That's excellent. Wonderful. Yeah. That'll be interesting to hear the follow-up on.
Yeah.
Right.
And see, I use their temperaments and their natures to try to get to them, instead of me trying to push my nature onto them.
Right. Yeah, yep. Exactly. Yeah, we covered quite a lot of material this morning. Why don't we close this session down, Brooke, and
sure.
Head for next Sunday again, 11:30. We'll talk some more about Dr. Mao's latest book, With Your Ultimate Life, through the principles of the 5 elements China personality theory from ancient China. And thank you again, Brooke, for your enlightening comments, and we'll see everybody hopefully next week at 11:30 on Sunday. All right, have a great week.
You too. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye, Brooke.
Bye.